In today's safety demonstration, we're going to go over the safe procedures on how to use a jigsaw. A jigsaw is going to come really handy in our construction class, specifically for this project, because we're going to be doing fine cuts in our push stick. Now, think of our our jigsaw similar to the vertical bandsaw, in that it can not only make straight cuts, but this jigsaw can also make circular cuts. And to also keep in mind, we need to ensure that we're also making relief cuts with the jigsaw on a curve. So similar to our bandsaw, if we wanted to make a curve cut on this piece of plywood, we're going to do a bunch of relief cuts with the jigsaw, and then we can actually curve it around to make our curve cut. But for this example, we're just going to do a nice simple straight cut. And the reason we have the jigsaw available in our class is because not only is it just another tool available, but with everybody cutting their push sticks at the same time, it might get congested. And we have two vertical bandsaws available, and what you might start to notice is that it's going to bottleneck, it's going to get a little bit crazy, a little bit busy. And so we have two jigsaws available that you can use, and these fall under our power tool safety, in which we've already gone over. But today, let's go a little bit more in depth with our jigsaw. So what we have here is a safety feature on our jigsaw. So when you go to try and hit just the handle itself, it won't actually power on until you have the safety lock engaged. Also, what you're going to have is on the bottom, there is a variable speed. So for here we have 1 through 6, and 1 being the slowest cutting, 6 being the quickest. Now when you're making a fine, precise cut, there's no need to have it on 6. That's really too quick, so you can lower it to maybe a 2 or a 3. For this cut, we're making a standard rip across the board, so we can safely have it around a 4 or a 5, and there's nothing wrong with that when we're making our cut. We also have our guard here, so it allows us to cut nice and flush, but also ensure that both our hands are going to be away from the guard when we're cutting. We don't want to be anywhere near the cutting blade once it's on. And with this, it actually moves in and out, and that's what's going to cut it. You can see that it has really nice sharp teeth on it, so it's a relatively new blade. So as you check your piece, you can inspect it. Everything looks good on the jigsaw, and so we're ready to use it. Now, before we go ahead and make our cut, there's also a few things we have to ensure. For one, we need to lay out and mark it. So for this example, we're just going to cut a 1-inch strip off of here. So we're going to mark 1 inch with our pencil using our measuring tape. We're going to go ahead and grab our square, and we're going to mark our line here. So now that we know our line is square, and what we always want to do is clamp down our work pieces so that we can ensure our hands are always free. Now that our piece is nice and secure, let's give that a little bit more tight. Now it won't move on us, so it's nice and solid. So that way, we don't have to try and hold the piece. Now, when you're using this jigsaw, it'd be nice to use both hands on it. Naturally, you might want to have one hand still down on the table, and that is okay, but you have to make sure your hand is at least 6 inches at minimum away from the cutting blade. But for best practice, let's try and use both hands. Always make sure that we have our safety glasses on. Hearing protection is always optional. We do have hearing muffs if you need it. Our device is plugged in, so we're going to go ahead and give it a quick check here. So now we're ready to rock. And what's important here is we want to make sure we're cutting on the right side of the line. So if we actually use this jigsaw and cut directly center of the line with our blade, we're going to lose about a 1/16 of an inch of our overall measurement. So we're going to cut, in this example, I want to keep the right side of the piece, So I'm going to cut on the left side of the line, which is also known as our waistline. And that way, the line is still going to be visible on our finished piece, and we can always sand it down after to get it to that exact measurement. But what we don't want to do is cut directly in the center of our line and lose that little bit. So when we're ready to cut, make sure your jigsaw is nice and flush on your cutting board, and this guard helps ensure that. We're going to get lined up just outside of the line, and I'm going to do my best to try and stay straight with the line. Now, if it's not a perfect cut, it's your first time using this jigsaw probably, again, just remember we can always go back and sand it down. So once we're ready, we're going to have both hands on our jigsaw. I'm lined up, I'm pretty happy. We're going to fully engage the trigger so that the blade starts moving before we get into our piece. Make sure it stops spinning before you leave your tool. Always unplug it just as a safety so that we know we're safe. You can go ahead and you can grab your piece, and you can see that the line is still left there. It's all the way across, our line is still intact, which is what we want to see. So right now we're probably about a 1/16 over our measurement, which is okay. We can always take this piece and, like I said, sand it down. And that's pretty much it for the safety features on our jigsaw. It's relatively straightforward to use. In this class, we're only going to worry about making straight cuts. If you want to make circular cuts, we can do that. But just remember, relief cuts are necessary so that we don't warp our blade. And that covers pretty much everything.